the first non-profit foundation, Gemeinnützerstiftung, for those of you who speak German, to be headquartered in a European Union country that was financed with a cryptocurrency and the IOTA token. And we had about 5% of IOTA tokens that were donated by the community, by token holders of IOTA, to create the foundation. The time that they were donated, they basically had no value. And by the time we got through the regulatory process of actually creating the foundation in Germany, we were able to bring what at the time were about 200 million euros worth of tokens into the foundation, and tax-free. So, yeah, it actually worked. Thank you. And you can imagine, though, so this is the regulatory affairs part of my job. You can imagine having to go to the Stiftungsaufsichtsbehörde and the Finanzamt here in Berlin and explain what we want to do, and they've never heard of Bitcoin, let alone IOTA tokens, and they were like, okay, fine. After a while, sure, okay, it's technology, we get it, that's cool. We're for technology, and we want to promote innovation in Germany, so yeah, good. Can you just show us, just send us Kontoauszüge, like bank account statements, to show the proof of funds. And I was like, well, I can send you some screenshots of some documents. So this was a really big challenge, and we are not at all working in chartered territory here. But it was fun, and we have had a great experience actually working here in Germany with German regulators. Despite the fact that everything works very slowly, it does work methodically. And if you check the boxes, you will eventually get to the finish line. And it's actually a wonderful thing about working in the European Union and it's given us a lot of legitimacy as IOTA, because now we are able to work with corporate partners, with governments, with UN, with other organizations from around the world, and they see us and they say, oh, you're a non-profit foundation in Germany. This is not some like fly-by-night thing that's off in, I don't know, the Falkland Islands or some, small jurisdiction. It's not even Switzerland, where most, crypto projects have gone to for tax reasons and for other reasons. Really went to the trouble of being in the European Union just to have that legitimacy. So that's a little bit about the foundation. We can't succeed without our network of community developers, partners, and corporations and governments, everything all over the world. This is our business model. we keep trying until we get it right. That's of course oversimplification, obviously, but it is very iterative. This is not some sort of top-down thing. It's a learning experience for all of us. All blockchain technologies are new. Bitcoin celebrated its 10-year birthday. The Bitcoin white paper, I guess, in October of this year, and the network going live, it will be 10 years in January. So all of this is new, and we're very cognizant of that, and so we're super, super excited to have people like you sitting in rooms like this, thinking about how to build exciting new things using the Tangle and other distributed ledgers. So let's collaborate and work together. If you have a great idea for mobility, for social impact, for smart cities, energy, health, financial services, whatever it is, please get in touch, and we would love to have a conversation with you. Thanks. Anybody want to ask any questions? Sorry. Yeah.
I think it's really beautiful, the social goals you're trying to solve with this.
I hear the what?
I was wondering whether somebody else, maybe not you, but whether we will hear a presentation about the hard facts of the consensus algorithm, so the technical details and the level of security you can achieve with this system. And also because you made a comparison with first generation proof of work systems, which not even every blockchain is, but there are some systems currently saying that they're the fourth generation, for example, Hashgraph, and they are working asynchronous with fault tolerant algorithms, also with the scalability and so on. So I was really wondering how IOTA compares to those really cutting edge new solutions as well, in terms of not just throughput, but also fairness, security, and so on. Because if this system is something which will take a major part in our world, and also maybe financial transactions and in areas where you really move values in value of billions of dollars, you can be pretty sure that it's going to be attacked. So it's very, very important to see what kind of vulnerabilities this system has and how is it provable mathematically, or it's just an evidence after simulations. We think it is. So that would be interesting to hear.
Yeah. So, like I said at the beginning, I'm not a mathematician and I'm not even a programmer, so I can't give you the technical details of exactly how Hashgraph works as compared to IOTA and whatnot. What I can say is that one thing that we have learned from experience as the IOTA Foundation is that there are many, many very interesting projects out there. Hashgraph is one of them, as well as many, many others that I could name. And each has its own strengths and weaknesses. And it's great that there are a set that are focusing on solving the scalability challenges of blockchain. Of course, the traditional blockchain projects are focusing on it as well. If you look at Ethereum, you've got Casper, you've got Sharding, you've got Plasma, you've got all the other stuff that's happening in Ethereum. But they're doing it in different ways because it's a totally different setup. And that makes sense for what it is, right? So you work within the parameters that you've set for yourself. You color within the lines of the picture you drew when you work with math. And the DAG structure has a different type of math than other types of blockchain setups. Hashgraph is, yet again, a different variation on the DAG structure. It's a bit of a hybrid.
It's different.
It's different.
It's different.
But one thing that we have learned in IOTA is that there is nothing like putting an actual network out there live to learn about the vulnerabilities of it. And so with third and fourth and fifth generation blockchain technologies and things like that, many of them are still white papers, or they may have some kind of a test net that they've set up that's not yet open, or it's not yet live in the wild, until we actually see how things operate in the wild and people start attacking it and trying to discover the vulnerabilities live. It's a bit difficult to know how robust the system is. But I think that our approach, and I think really it's the only practical approach, is to, on the one hand, put a lot of resources into trying to formalize the math at a theoretical level, which is why we have an entire research team. They're actually mostly based in Tel Aviv, in Israel. But there are some others in Brazil and other parts of the world as well, that are really cryptographers, theoretical mathematicians, people who are looking at the formal bounds of the consensus algorithm, looking at the possibility of spam attacks and how one counters that, looking at what does the 51% attack, the so-called 51% attack, look like in a DAG setup, which is more of a 31 to 33% attack in most distributed ledger setups, actually, if you look at it. In fact, so we're taking that very seriously. We have a huge amount of resources devoted to our research team. And also, we have learned our lesson through experience as well about really making sure that we invest in security audits and external security audits of new releases. The Trinity wallet, which was the first wallet that was actually put out by the IOTA Foundation, for example, went through very, very extensive security vetting before being put out as a beta version. And we never had that before. We had only community-developed wallets, which we were super grateful for because we never built one ourselves. But many of those cause problems for users, and when you have billions of dollars or millions of dollars, as you said, it's important that you take those things seriously. And then the other thing that we do at the same time as investing heavily in the research is to invest in simulations, and so not just theoretical research, but actually simulations on the testnet, and to encourage others like yourselves to get involved and poke holes at things and try it out and see what flaws you can find, and then let us know so that we can try and fix them together. But also to put it out there on a live network is really a good way, because then you have a live bug bounty program, right? Because if people can break the algorithm, then they can make money off of it, and there's nothing like real live financial incentive to bring the creativity out in the best hackers out there. So I think that having both the research perspective and the live hacking perspective is useful.
You mentioned as well that theory and practice is sometimes overlapping but not the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important to know the theoretical limits of an algorithm, and maybe you can, in theory, say it fulfills certain hard facts, so which you can name in mathematical terms as level of security, just like ADFT, for example. And then, of course, you have a praxis. You implement that algorithm, and maybe you make a mistake, and it's more vulnerable than the theoretical limits would say. But if already the theoretical limits are lower, then of course in practice you won't be able to get better. So that's why it's important to know the theoretical properties of such an algorithm.
I agree. I don't know the theoretical because I'm not the mathematician who's investigating those formal bounds, but we do have a team of very talented people who are doing that.
Yeah. Then you're here, so we can talk about it later.
There are a couple people from the research department here, fairly new to the IOTA Foundation. Our director of research is not here, unfortunately. And as I said, most of our research team is based in Tel Aviv. But if you have specific questions, then you can feel free to approach us afterwards, and we can put you in touch with the people who can answer them, because unfortunately that's all.
I suppose there are some.
But I think of this as similar. I have an analogy for this because I'm an economist by training as well. In economics, there's formal mathematical modeling in economics, and all the models are wonderfully good as long as your assumptions hold. Right? And often the assumptions are true, and if the assumptions are true, then the model doesn't work. And so that's why we need both the formal research and also the live practice.
Excuse me for the provocative question.
Yeah.
So, I really like that you are a non-profit foundation and you try to find good causes you can support with this technology. But do you also, or are you also thinking about the potential negative impacts of this technology? The ways this technology can be misused by potential malicious actors? Because every sword has two edges, and we've seen it with social networks, for example, that in the beginning it was all nice and let's connect everybody in the world. And today we can see that Facebook is responsible for a lot of shit going down in the world. So what can happen in 10 years thanks to this technology?
Yeah, absolutely. This is an extremely good point. Yes, we do take this seriously. This is one of the reasons that we have a regulatory affairs side in the foundation. I personally take it extremely seriously. I spend a lot of my time worrying about and thinking about data protection, for example, data privacy. Here in the European Union, we have the GDPR, everyone's new best friend since May, right? Because you have to keep clicking on those things that say I agree on every website that you visit. But it's a good thing that we take data protection seriously in Europe. And we have seen through Facebook, through many other of the big players, that we have a big problem with big data in our world. But we also have, it is a double-edged sword, as you said, because we have cool up-and-coming new solutions with zero-knowledge proofs, with concepts of self-sovereign identity, which weren't possible without these innovations, that we have new ways now of potentially protecting data that we couldn't have done in the past. So my view and the attitude that I take when I'm talking with lawmakers and regulators is we should take the regulatory concerns, the policy concerns, the citizens' concerns seriously in every area, whether it's money laundering, whether it's data protection, whether it's trafficking in drugs or weapons or whatever, using cryptocurrencies and things like this, tax evasion, consumer protection, big issue with all the ICO scams, right? So we take those things very seriously, but we also use the technology to combat them to the extent that we can, rather than shutting down the innovation, because someone will come up with it anyway. And the dark web has always been with us and will always be with us. So we just need to be smart and principled about how we deal with it.
In particular, this question that I'm still struggling with your jungle example there.
Yeah.
That you use deforestation sensors, data inputs out in the jungle. I cannot understand what does ledger technology help here. I can see as an engineer, I can see lots of problems at the protocol level, devices joining and leaving, synchronization of timing, etc., etc. What does the ledger technology really help? Yeah, maybe you can elaborate a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, so the basic idea is we want to get reliable data about what's actually happening in these forests that we are funding preservation programs in. And we also want to know quickly if deforestation is happening so that we can stop it. So if we can detect human activities rapidly, then we can send in an on-the-ground control team quickly to an area rather than waiting for the next satellite to fly over within 3 months and notice that the forest is gone. So the real-time data collection is huge. And then the question is, how do you get the real-time data into some kind of format where, first of all, you know that it's actual data, that it hasn't been tampered with, because there will be incentives for people who are getting profits from protecting forests, local communities on the ground, to tamper with the data to generate more revenue for their community. You want to make sure it's real data, that it hasn't been tampered with, and you want to make sure that you're getting it in a high enough periodicity to actually respond to it. Right. 3 months is not a high enough periodicity, you need more than that. So it's really about creating these data marketplaces where you can make sure that you have the data available and that the right people are seeing it at the right times so that you can respond to it in a good way. In the future, potentially, perhaps, we might be able to marry up the incentivization programs that we have on the global regime. We have these incentivization programs through the RED program and the RED Plus program, which funnel monetary rewards to forest caretakers on the ground. You could actually make this a two-way street, where we're not just collecting data to have better carbon baselines and more honest carbon trading credit markets, but also directly rewarding people in real time for effective carbon preservation efforts, which would bring the monies through these programs directly to the local communities. Right now, as you can imagine, the person walking around in the Amazon they don't have a way to get IOTA tokens on their phone, and even if they did, what would they do with them, right? So this is the next step.
You can project that discussion to any kind of sensor network, of course, with humans involved.
Right.
I think it makes sense, yeah.
Right. So the same thing we're looking at with water metering in places that have scarce water resources, for example, and where people falsify water metering because water is rationed due to droughts, things like this. So that any kind of situation where you need real-time monitoring of an on-the-ground situation, that you then funnel resources as a response to that information. I hope that helps. You're a recidivist,
Yeah,
so we have to give someone else a chance.
Maybe a quick question. How do GDPR and data marketplace, how do they work together and what are the problems?
Yeah, really difficult. Really difficult. There are tones being written on GDPR and whether or not it can be made compatible with blockchain architectures or DLT architectures. One of the initiatives that I'm involved with, the European Union has established a group called the European Blockchain Observatory, and they constituted some expert working groups. And in one of those working groups that I sit on, there's a special focus on GDPR and figuring out how GDPR can be made compatible, or how it can be interpreted in a way that is compatible with the technology, the way that it operates. The problem is GDPR was written before blockchain, where it was written for a pre-blockchain era. And the legal definitions that are used in the GDPR, for example, the idea of a data processor or a data controller. Data processors and data controllers are made liable for for having to get consent from people for every use of their data. And you are also required as a data processor or data controller to make it possible for people to be able to revoke their consent and to say, I now wish to be forgotten. This is the so-called right to be forgotten under the jurisprudence of the European Court of Justice. This is really difficult to do in an immutable permanent ledger. But what we can do is we can perhaps, if we take a broader view of the policy goals of the GDPR, why is that there? Why is this decision there? Can we achieve the policy goals in a slightly different way within this architecture? If we require people to make sure that they're using best practice encryption when transmitting data in the first place, as opposed to just sort of openly transmitting someone's sensitive health data unencrypted or something. And we make sure that we could consider also some of the things that are being discussed are whether there should be a requirement to have a so-called data key that's associated with your data, whereby data streams not only require your public-private key sort of pair to be in place, but also that there's a third key which the owner of the data can inject at any time to disrupt the data stream, essentially. And if that data key is not there, or if it's removed or revoked, then the data stream goes away. So there are some technical workarounds. If you want to know more details, you can ask me later, or ask Figs in the back, who's a specialist on GDPR, much to his deep regret.
That's funny. I love it.
I think we should hand over you. Yes. Thank you very much.
So we are running a little bit out of time. This is why we move on directly. And you want to join? So welcome Kevin from High Mobility and Anne from the Mobility team. So when I joined the foundation around February, the first thing that people told me was how you are talking so much about collaboration, partnership, and you're actually showing nothing. So we decided today, as a mobility team, decided today that we don't show any presentation, we just show what we're actually working on together with either startups or what the community is doing. So I will directly hand over to you, Kevin.
Thank you. I'll still show some stuff. So I'm Kevin, I'm CTO of High Mobility, founder. We are building an API platform for cars, so a way of getting connected car data through APIs from the car makers to build stuff. So first thing I wanted to just talk a bit about the history about the connected car, because we are right now in the Future Mobility Innovators location or club. And there are some pictures there of cars, flying scooters, drones, and all these type of new innovations going on. And we can see it on the streets, and a lot of different car sharing, or a lot of different sharing schemes with scooters, with bikes. Not too much with cars. Of course, there are some cool services for cars, but it's kind of a closed environment. I mean, if you want to get access to some data from cars, where do you go? There's not that many sources where you can get it from. So this is a kind of a problem. But in the end, it's opening, so the cars are getting connected. They are connected since a while. But the question is that how can external companies, startups, third-party companies, some kind of mobility services, can get access to data from cars? So we can look at what has been done so far. So early on, like a few years ago, some people already started hacking on cars, even though there were no official APIs. People started to use it. One example is for the Tesla. So there was some guy in, I think, Silicon Valley. They used an Amazon Dash button, where you could push the button to order some new things at home. And basically, when they pushed the Dash button, it ordered some, or it turned on the climatization of the Tesla. This was done through the Tesla API. It was quite unofficial, but it was possible to use it. Second example is with, so years ago with BMW, they had the i3 and connected car app, and someone reverse engineered the entire API, put it on GitHub, and it's still up there, so if you want, you can use it, but it's totally unofficial. So there still has been very little official work from the car companies directly.
Sorry, I'm late.
It's fine.
Late flight.
So, but at the same time, we have some kind of examples where things have gone wrong. So this is the Jeep, and of course a connected car, and people were able to hack it. They were able to find out the IP address of the car, reverse engineer the protocol, basically send any type of command to the car to shut down the engine, to drive into the ditch. And it worked quite well. So this was, again, like car industry got quite scared. Cars are connected, easy to hack, the security hasn't really been thought about. So that's also something that has slowed down the process in what can be done. So if you look at the different possibilities that has been done so far, is that the first type of data you have been able to get through the car has mostly been through the infotainment system. So the entertainment system inside of the car, you can get some basic data to Android or iOS. And the examples, there are some Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, basically probably know them. But you cannot get too much data. So even though Android Auto, it says that the protocol itself has been designed that you should be able to get sensor data out of the car, today what you can do, you can basically show notifications in the car, or you can play some media, so you can play a song, change controls. If you look at the kind of source code for Android Auto, you can see that they have plans for a lot of things. So they have car speed, GPS data, gyroscope, odometer, mileage, distance. They have a lot of different data that they have in the source code. So basically they have defined the protocol, but none of this you can use because Google doesn't have the access from the car companies to actually get this data out of the car and transmit it to the smartphones. So it's a good try, it's still kind of ongoing, but it's nothing you can use to build some kind of service or use that data. The second kind of generation, what happened was more independently from the car companies through dongles. So maybe you've seen there's some applications where you have some kind of dongle you have to plug it into your car. This was basically the second thing that's been going on, and you can extract the data through Bluetooth or through connectivity to a backend server. There are some companies that are working with this, Automatic, Mojo, Zubi, and there are some notebook applications, there are fleet management applications. So they are really trying to see how could they get the data without working with the car companies, because working with the car companies is a slow process, it takes time. It's quite messy, so this is some screenshots of how you have to kind of plug in the dongle. You have to find this connector, it's in different places of each car. But still there are some companies that work with this. I don't know, has anyone ever used a dongle like this? Okay, some few people. So it works, so there are startups that are using this data, but mostly it doesn't give that much more data than you could get from a smartphone. You can get the mileage somewhat, but it's not the mileage is not officially part of the protocol to get from this diagnostics port. So again, it's something that's more or less temporary. It's bypassing the car companies, and at some point also this port is getting closed. So for new cars, you cannot really use this to extract data when you're driving for safety reasons. This is how the dongles look like. And the type of data you can get from dongles, then that is more like trip start location.